Okay, let's unpack this incredible stack of sources we have here. We're about to plunge, really plunge 5 millennia into the history and mythology of a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
And it's all tied together by a single desperate beacon.
It is a convergence of, epic proportions. Just imagine the moment for a second. You have a 5,000-year-old Sith dreadnought, the Harbinger, and it just emerges from what you can only describe as the worst misjump in history.
Right.
It left its own time 5,000 years before the Galactic Empire, before the Clone Wars, even before the Old Republic era that we usually talk about. And now it finds itself in a galaxy it just does not recognize. A galaxy that has completely forgotten it even existed.
That opening image is just phenomenal. So this deep dive today is based entirely on a deep exploration of excerpts from Paul S. Kemp's Star Wars. Crosscurrent. Our mission is, well, it's simple, but it's also profound. We're going to try and trace the very threads of fate, what the characters see as destiny or the will of the Force, or maybe just pure chance. All as 3 major timelines just slammed together on this one isolated desert world, Faust, and its incredibly cold, icy moon.
And we have to get into the details. The source of the conflict, this mysterious Lignan ore, the philosophical battles that are waged right alongside the physical ones, and maybe most importantly, what the source material suggests is the ultimate cost of being absolutely certain about something.
So, to set the scene for you, we have 3 interwoven storylines that span, the entire Star Wars timeline. First, we have the past, the timeline of 5000 BBY. This is the height of Nagasato's Sith Empire.
Right, and this story features Jedi Master Relin and his former Padawan, Sace, who has, by this point, fully embraced the dark side. He's a Sith captain. And their explosive conflict over this Lignan ore is exactly what launches the Harbinger and its whole crew into this accidental time jump. It makes them living artifacts of the past.
And then we jump to the present, which is about 41.5 ABY. This is the post-Vong War modern era of the galaxy. This is where we find our main seeker, Jedi Knight Jaden Korr. And Jaden is not seeking glory. He's driven by this terrifying Force vision, but he is deeply, deeply haunted by his own dark, morally gray past.
And he ends up teaming with 2 fascinating companions, Kadron Fall, who's a deeply cynical but incredibly efficient smuggler, a real junk jockey, and Mar Edie Shale, his Syrian first mate, and his connection to the Force is much more subtle. It's almost mathematical.
And finally, there's the constant existential threat sort of moving invisibly through all of this, Keldawaro, an Anzati assassin. He's not interested in credits or conquest. His entire purpose is esoteric. He hunts Force sensitives for their soup.
Their soup, yeah. It's the very essence of sentience. And he's doing it in pursuit of his own personal philosophical quest for revelation. He navigates the universe not by star charts, but by what he calls the Den Nosi, the fate lines. And this whole framework, it forces you to consider the Force itself as just one part of a much larger cosmic web.
It's a phenomenal setup, so let's not wait. Let's start where the timeline begins 5 millennia ago and really dig into the material cause of this entire cosmic accident.
Okay.
Let's travel back. The Great Hyperspace War era, 5000 BBY. The scene is set on Phagon III's largest moon, which is, it's undergoing total annihilation. The level of destruction described in the sources is almost Baroque in its brutality.
That is the perfect word for it, Baroque. The Sith are engaged in this absolutely ruthless mining operation, but they're using weapons of war to do it. They have 64 specialized cruisers, and they're described not as simple warships, but as planetary bombardment weapon systems with a bit of starship wrapped around them. They're flying in formation, and they're unleashing this annihilation in what the source disturbingly calls warm, glorious colors. They were literally incinerating the moon to get at what's inside.
And that destruction has one singular overriding purpose: the acquisition of Lignan ore. We really need to understand what this material is and why Nagasato is willing to just devastate an entire moon for it. The sources are very clear that this ore is crucial. Its mere presence causes Force sensitives, like Captain Sace and his staff, to feel giddy, almost inebriated.
Wait, giddy, almost inebriated, that sounds less like a source of pure focused dark side power and more like a volatile, intoxicating addiction. Is the source material suggesting Lignan functions almost like a drug?
Exactly. It's a raw, immediate source of dark side power, but it comes at a cost of control. It causes this emotional amplification and giddiness. It's unfiltered, and Stasis needs vast quantities of it. They're using these insectoid harvester droids to retrieve the ore from the charred, superheated surface, which is a detail that just highlights the complete lack of regard for any kind of biological life or safety in this operation. It's pure, desperate extraction.
And this whole thing is overseen by Captain Sace, who is, of course, Relin's former Padawan. Seiss is now fully immersed in the dark side, and he really encapsulates the core Sith philosophy we see over and over. No right, no wrong, only power. He is so cynical about the Jedi, and he has this guy, Colonel Druur, who is described as a spy for Savin. And Door's job is just to make sure every last bit of Lignan is returned to the assembly point at Primus Galud. So this is not just a military operation, it's a test of loyalty and a massive logistical supply chain for war.
Which brings us to the Jedi counterattack, led by Master Relin. Relin is driven by the immediate necessity of preventing this order shipment. He knows it would give Sato a massive, maybe insurmountable advantage in the war. But Relin's actions, they immediately raise questions about the purity of his intent. His plan is just sheer desperation.
Indeed. He infiltrates Harbinger by leaping from his own infiltrator and magnetically gripping onto a returning transport shuttle. This is extreme. Once he's inside the landing bay, he uses mag grenades to cause a massive secondary explosion, disabling the transports and complicating the Sith's extraction process. And we see him assassinate security personnel, specifically a Massassi warrior using his lightsaber. This is a very direct, lethal action for a Jedi Master who's operating without, the typical constraints of a wider task force. He is already compromising his Jedi ethics in the name of the greater good, which is a slippery slope we see all the time in the lore.
And meanwhile, his young Padawan, Drev, who the source notes is an extraordinarily intuitive pilot, but more of a potential than a fully realized Force user, is maneuvering their small infiltrator against 12 Blade-class fighters. Drev's eventual sacrifice is what finally pushes Relin from a mission of sabotage into a deeply personal quest for revenge.
Drev flies the infiltrator directly into the dreadnought's jump field. It effectively forces Seiss to divert resources and attention. The source tells us Seiss is watching this whole confrontation from the bridge. He's probing Drev's connection to the Force. He sees Drev's immense potential. But that potential is cut short by a selfless, protective act. It's the ultimate expression of the Jedi Code interdependence pitted against the Sith Code of individual power.
And this act sets the scene for the final, fatal confrontation between Relin and Seiss in the hyperdrive chamber. Seiss uses this opportunity not just to fight, but to lay bare his philosophy. He criticizes the Jedi path as a denial of self. He argues, and this is a central theme, that no sentience can long abide that, and that the Sith embrace the self, and therein lies their strength.
This is a classic dark side argument, but it's articulated with such a painful specificity here. Relin, having just lost Drev and facing the choices he's made in his life, he attempts to reason. He argues for the interdependence of life. But Seiss strikes back with this deeply personal, psychological attack. He asks, when is the last time you felt anything with passion? When is the last time you laughed, Relin, felt a woman's touch? When?
That is just brutal. It strips away the Jedi's grand philosophy, and it attacks the core human needs they are forced to deny. It suggests that the Jedi's certainty in their emotional detachment is, it's fundamentally unsustainable. Seiss is arguing that his path is just the honest acceptance of human nature.
And he backs that philosophy up with power. He unleashes Force lightning, a capability Relin didn't anticipate. It shows the immediate explosive growth Seiss experienced by embracing his passion. Relin realizes he is beaten physically, but his mission, now fueled by revenge, has to continue. So his final act is the ultimate commitment. He detonates charges that severely damage the hyperdrive, severing his own arm in the process, making sure the ship cannot jump safely.
And this brings us to the crucial mechanism of the time jump, which the sources detail with impressive clarity. Because of the damage, Harbinger never fully entered hyperspace. Instead, it accelerated to near light speed, traveling down this flawed tunnel of real space and hyperspace. It's not a simple jump, it's a chronological displacement. The source explicitly states that for the crew, only a short time passed, maybe days or weeks, allowing them to survive. But for the galaxy, more than 5,000 years passed.
And what's so philosophically fascinating here is that Seiss's use of the dark side, amplified by the Lignan ore, is exactly what saved the ship from shattering. He was using his rage and newfound power to forcibly hold the ship together. He essentially locked his hate and his entire crew into this accidental chronal displacement. The dark side didn't just corrupt him, it fossilized his rage. It made the Harbinger a 5,000-year-old monument to his certainty.
Wow.
They were saved by the very volatile energy Relin was trying to destroy.
A perfect irony. So the ancient Sith captain and his crew are now artifacts, living fossils, preserved in their own moment of dark side-fueled certainty, ready to crash into a galaxy that is utterly unprepared for them. The foundation of the convergence has been set.
So we've established the ancient forces and the rigid certainty that propelled them into the future. Now let's look at the character that represents pure existential destiny and the true mystery of fate, Kel Duro, the Anzat.
Kel Duro's existence revolves around a unique, and I mean deeply chilling, perspective of reality. It completely transcends the basic Jedi-Sith dichotomy that defines the rest of the galaxy. He is a hunter whose sole purpose is tracking the richest soup, specifically the essence of sentience found in Force sensitives.
In this species, they view existence through a lens that is almost completely foreign to us. The Dane-Nosi, which Kel translates as the Fate Lines, he describes them as this complex network of glowing potentialities: green for life, orange for change, red for danger, blue for the Force, and silver for his own line, the path to revelation.
This is a major philosophical pivot for the listener. For Kel, this web of lines is the true reality. He believes the Force is merely one specific, often misleading aspect of this greater skein of fate. It's something that neither Jedi nor Sith, in their focus on power or control, really fully understand. He just follows these lines, believing they will lead him to the ultimate revelation about the truth of existence itself.
His perspective is so alien that it informs his horrific biology. And we need to detail the Anzati feeding mechanism because it directly ties into his quest for transcendence. The sources describe these wire-thin appendages called feeders emerging from slits in his face. They penetrate the victim's nostrils and sink into the rich gray stew of the skull cavity to consume the soup, or the essence of sentience.
And the detail that makes it truly horrific is that he needs his prey to be conscious in order to transcend. It's not just sustenance, it's a psychic process. He describes watching the victims Dane-Nosi, all their potential futures, all their dreams and fears coalesce into a single definitive line that intersects Kel's own silver line, where it just stops. The victim is reduced from sentience to meat in the span of a moment. And Kel is looking for the stronger soup, the richer essence that will finally reveal the whole truth of fate to him.
And this pilgrimage for ultimate truth brings him to the Sith tomb world of Korriban. He's summoned by a message that purports to be from Darth Krayt, but instead he meets Darth Wirelock, who acts as the voice of the dreaming master. Wirelock explicitly states that Krayt walks in dreams. Past, present, and future are as one to him.
So even the Sith's supreme leader is operating on a level of chronological ambiguity that kind of mirrors the time-displaced Harbinger. Wirelock tasks Kel with following a shared Vision 1, believed to be about Phos, to find a sign, possibly the very revelation Kel seeks. The One Sith are essentially using Kel as a covert intermediary, since Krayt wills the Order to remain quiescent for the moment, waiting for his own grand designs to mature.
And what's crucial here is the parallel Wirelock explicitly draws. He suggests to Kel that the Jedi may have received a similar vision. He's effectively setting up a race to this convergence point. And Kel accepts this because he sees his own silver line of fate beginning to intertwine with the blue lines associated with the Jedi. He believes his destiny is now inextricably linked to this approaching conflict.
It fundamentally reframes the conflict, doesn't it? It's not just a Jedi versus Sith plot device anymore. It's a metaphysical collision. You have the ancient certainty of Seize, locked in rage. You have the modern doubt of Jaden seeking redemption, and the existential quest of Kel seeking ultimate revelation. Two millennia-spanning missions and one constant hunter, all pointing to the same remote, icy moon.
And we, the listener, we're watching the puppet strings of destiny being pulled by three separate forces. And Kel is operating on a level of certainty, the certainty that the Dane-Nosi is the absolute truth, which, ironically, may be just as fatal as the dogmatic certainty of the Sith.
Now we switch focus to the modern era, 41.5 ABY, and the Jedi Knight, who will be the epicenter of this convergence, Jaden Korr. Jaden is so vital because he is not the typical confident, dogmatic Jedi Master. He's driven by a deep sense of guilt and doubt, which makes him the perfect foil to the ancient, fossilized certainty of Captain Seize.
Jaden is searching the unknown regions based on a Force vision, a classic Jedi motivation. He sees the blue, ringed gas giant and its icy moon, and he hears these pleading voices saying, "Help us!" But his pursuit is completely colored by his past actions. The sources mention, specifically, his role in the Jedi Grand Scheme that resulted in Centerpoint Station exploding.
Right, and for those who might not be familiar with that specific event, Centerpoint Station's destruction was a cataclysmic failure of judgment by the Jedi Order. It resulted in devastation of galactic proportions. Jaden's involvement immediately grounds his guilt into catastrophe, not a minor mistake.
And perhaps more personally damaging to his psyche, the moral compromise of having spaced Confederation soldiers under orders. The sources explicitly detail that this included non-combatants and engineers, not just combatants. He admits his profound guilt fuels his constant doubt and uncertainty. He's flying this old Z-95, actively keeping his mission secret from the Jedi Order. He doesn't want them involved in what he sees as a personal quest for an answer and maybe redemption. He feels that the Order's certainty leads to failure.
His only concrete lead is deeply cryptic, which is fitting for the unknown regions. What you seek can be found in the black hole on Faust. And he correctly deduces that this refers to Farpoint, Faust's largest population center.
Faust itself is a dusty desert world, and Farpoint is an amazing setting. It's a population center built on the ruins of a massive crashed starship, which is likely Chiss or Empire of the Hand in origin. The mere ruins suggest ancient, powerful secrets. It is a literal black hole for adventurers, criminals, and other undesirables who prefer living on the edge of known space. The place is so remote and untamed that the vid screens in the cantina are playing sporting events that aired 4 standard months earlier. It's a place where time slows down, just before the time-jumped dreadnought arrives.
So he needs a pilot capable of navigating this region, and he finds them at the Black Hole Cantina. First, Kidron Fowle, the captain of Junker, described as a cynical junk jockey and a meticulous tinkerer. He's looking for money, possibly to win back from the crime boss Riga Zance in a game of Corellian Gambit Sabaka.
The detail about Kidron's ship, Junker, is crucial to understanding him. He optimized Junker's efficiency to 109% of the manufacturer's spec. That is a perfect metaphor for his entire life. Hyper-competent, always pushing the limits, trying to get more out of a system than it was designed to give, and yet self-destructive and constantly looking over his shoulder. He's living on borrowed time, just like his ship is running at 109%.
And then there's Mar Edi Shale, the Syrian first mate. He is calm, analytical, and highly organized. He's often tracking time down to the second, 19 minutes and 9 standard seconds tardy. Jaden senses that Mar is faintly force-sensitive, but is likely unaware, using his intricate mathematics and rigid organization as his conscious interface with the Force. Mar represents a quiet, logical solidity in Kidron's chaotic, self-inflicted crises.
And the entire plot hinges on the Sabak game and the source of the coordinates. The sources reveal the coordinates leak originated, predictably, in Kidron's overconsumption of spiced pulque and his attempts to impress Zeltron dancing girls. It's classic Star Wars. Galactic destiny pivots on whether or not a guy drinks too much and tries to win his money back.
Kidron, having lost his credits, wagers the coordinates to Regas. The tension is just palpable as Kidron doubles down for exclusive rights to the coordinates. He is determined not to cede anything to Regas. He can be cynical, but he has pride.
Jaden, lurking in the crowd, steps in subtly. This is a brilliant tactical move that also raises Jaden's moral conflict. He uses an unseen force mind trick on Regas to throw the game back to Kidron, securing the coordinates and sparking a massive bar fight. He's manipulating free will for the sake of the greater good of his quest, forcing him to compromise his code once again.
And as here Jaden reveals his identity, he cuts an exit in the corrugated plasteel wall with his lightsaber, shocking the smugglers. This chaotic action, however, confirms Kel's presence.
Kel is watching, invisible in his mimetic suit, sensing the rich soup of the Jedi. He sees the name Jaden Korr and watches the Jedi's Dan Nosi intertwining with his own. It confirms the truth Wirelock suggested. Faust is the nexus of destiny. Kel, in a moment of disguised contact, bumps into Jaden, testing the waters and feeling the Jedi's fate lines tangle with his silver line.
The initial tension between Jaden and the smugglers is important to highlight for you. Kidron immediately suspects this is another Jedi grand scheme, citing Centerpoint as an example of the devastation they cause. Jaden is forced to be honest. This is not about the Order's rigid plans. It's a personal quest driven by doubt. That honesty and the promise of protection from Regas is what ultimately secures their temporary and very uneasy alliance.
Jaden's strength here isn't his power, it's his capacity for doubt. That is what distinguishes him from Sayes, who has 5,000 years of fossilized, unchanging certainty.
So with the coordinates secured, Kidron agrees to Jaden's proposition in exchange for protection from Regas and his weak-way bodyguards. Mar's deep loyalty, which he expresses simply by saying, "You are my friend," cements the decision. The human element of friendship and loyalty is often overlooked in Star Wars lore, but here, it's the catalyst for survival.
Once they reach orbit around the blue gas giant, the full, shocking truth hits them. The massive ship detected is the 5,000-year-old Sith dreadnought Harbinger, a damaged artifact that misjumped and accelerated near light speed. This is the moment the past timeline physically crashes into the present, exactly where Kel's fate lines predicted.
The distress signal, paradoxically, is coming from the icy moon, not the dreadnought itself. But inside an escape pod that also made the 5,000-year jump is Relin, and he recognizes Harbinger immediately. Relin, fueled by rage over Dro's death and 5,000 years of isolation, immediately plans a desperate assault. He is not seeking to survive, he is seeking vengeance against his former Padawan, Sace.
This is a critical psychological moment. Relin is convinced that to destroy Sace, he must completely abandon his Jedi certainty and embrace his rage. He convinces Jaden and Jaden to split forces. Relin, subtly drawing on the Lignan power radiating from the dreadnought, will pilot Junker with Mar toward Harbinger's landing bay as a diversion. Jaden and Jaden will take the shuttle Flotsam to the moon to investigate the distress beacon's source.
The ensuing chase is chaotic and kinetic. It perfectly illustrates the clash of ancient and modern technology. Harbinger launches blades in pursuit, and Jaden, who pilots Junker initially, flies wildly through the treacherous ice rings. This is pure, frantic desperation.
And Relin, now controlling the tractor beam, exhibits this dark, calculating competence. He uses the beam expertly, fouling the blade trajectories and turning them into flaming debris against the rings. This shows that he is still an effective warrior, but his motivation has completely curdled. Jaden then executes the critical ruse, dumping their cargo, including his beloved searing swoop bike and the mag grenades that had been part of Relin's original plan, from Junker's airlock.
The irony of Jaden's sacrifice cannot be overstated. Jaden, the man who lives for efficiency and monetary gain, sacrifices his most beloved possession, the swoop bike that represents his freedom and self-interest. He does it to save the mission. This is a moment of selfless pragmatism that contrasts so sharply with the ideological certainty driving Sace and Relin. And the resulting explosion tricks the remaining blades into believing Junker was destroyed.
But the true high-stakes maneuver is Mar's infiltration. Relin, driven by self-consuming rage, convinces Mar to execute an extremely dangerous short jump under Harbinger's deflectors and slam Junker into the landing bay entrance. Mar's connection to the Force, filtered through his intense mathematical genius, allows him to attempt this suicidal maneuver. He's calculating vectors and possibilities that no ordinary pilot could execute.
Mar, despite the immense stress and danger, displays a phenomenal feat of organization and survival instinct. He manages to vent the ship, creating a sudden vacuum that kills the Massassi security crew that was attempting to board. However, he's nearly killed himself by a powerful Massassi who forces open the cockpit door.
Mar collapses from blood loss and decompression sickness, but his final conscious act is to activate the autopilot to head toward the moon beacon. He fulfilled his part of the deal through sheer, calculated determination, proving his unique logical connection to the Force is just as powerful as the more emotional or destructive paths chosen by the Jedi and Sith.
Meanwhile, Relin, having successfully created the diversion, does not board an escape pod as promised. He descends into Harbinger's vast cargo bay, which is stacked high with Lignan ore. Relin is entirely embracing the path of destruction now. He sits cross-legged among the ore, drawing on his raw power to amplify his hate and confront Sace, ready for a final mutual conflagration. The Jedi Master has completely succumbed to the dark side's call for vengeance, fueled by the volatile ore.
While Relin faces his former Padawan in the past turn present, Jaden and Jaden follow the distress beacon to the moon's surface. They land near a snow-covered, rectangular Imperial facility, which is a highly hazardous environment. It's noted for its faint smell of sulfur, indicating some sort of subterranean industrial or volcanic process. And the continuous beacon pulses its chilling message. Help us. Help us.
This facility immediately signals something top secret and profoundly sinister. It's confirmed to be Thrawn-era construction. That detail is important because Thrawn valued efficiency, control, and absolute secrecy above all else. And this is reflected in the facility being devoid of any identification. No labels, no arrows, not even any windows.
And this extreme secrecy is mirrored in its personnel quarters. The scientists had only color-coded names: Dr. Black, Dr. Gray, Dr. Blue. We learn that this was likely done to prevent recognition, possibly even involving surgical alterations of their facial structure to make them unidentifiable after assignment. The Empire, and specifically Thrawn, wanted the work to be the only identity. They were disposable pawns of cold, bureaucratic certainty.
The environment suggests a recent and desperately violent event. As they explore, the evidence of a pitched battle mounts. Blaster scorch marks everywhere, shredded stormtrooper armor, and dismembered security droids scattered along the corridors. All damage Jaden immediately recognizes as lightsaber work, yet, disturbingly, there are no bodies.
The key to the mystery is found in the ransacked central computer room, where Jaden recovers a functional holocrystal. The hololog reveals the facility's purpose. It was related to cloning, on a scale far beyond simple troop duplication. Dr. Black references Palpatine and the necessity to recombine the sample DNA.
And crucially, he mentions the last two Kong clones, suggesting the cloning of powerful Force sensitives with complex or conflicted loyalties. Com Salusar was a powerful figure, and cloning someone of his caliber or Mara Jade or similar figures shows that the facility was trying to engineer controllable Force users. This facility was designed to use the Force, not fear it.
The atmosphere of terror just grows as they listen to the logs. Dr. Gray's final entry reports that the staff lost control, and he requested termination of the experiment and the subjects via trihexylon gas protocol. The fighting involved lightsabers, confirming the clones were Force users, designed to be weapons but somehow gaining free will.
Jaden descends the lift shaft, which smells profoundly of death, to the lower level. It's described as feeling like a tomb that held an enormous evil. The clones' living quarters are sterile and tidy, a disturbing contrast to the chaos above. We learned that the clones were given hard-copy books instead of data crystals to prevent them from scrounging parts to build weapons. Yet they managed to build lightsabers anyway, out of sheer ingenuity and desperation.
On the ceiling of one of those rooms, words are scrawled in dried blood. "Stop looking at us." This is a visceral sign of the psychological torment they endured under constant observation from the floor above. This path leads Jaden to the central round chamber, which contained the Mother.
The Mother is a several-meter-wide circular cloning cylinder, now holding the bodies of the color-coded doctors, stormtroopers, and security droids. A grotesque, tangled pile of corpses all twisted together. This confirms the gas protocol failed, and the clones executed the facility staff. The scientists, certain in their control, became the experiment's final, horrifying failure.
Jaden is immediately attacked by a surviving Com clone, a dark side user who fights with frightening skill and intensity. The clone immediately gains the advantage, severing Jaden's fingers and lightsaber. The clone then uses the Force to choke Jaden, saying Jaden should be honored to provide sustenance to Mother, referring to the gruesome pile of bodies.
This is Jaden's pivotal defining moment. He's already haunted by his past. Now, in a flash of desperation and terror, dark-side power Force lightning erupts, unbidden from him, blue and baleful. This saves his life, startling the clone. It is the universe telling Jaden, you're capable of the thing you fear most.
And Jaden instantly realizes he is faced with the ultimate choice: surrender to the dark side impulse to save his life and achieve easy victory, or deny it. He consciously denies the impulse, letting the lightning die. Instead, he reaches for the crude lightsaber he built as a boy, a weapon of his ignorant youth.
He uses this simple, non-mechanized weapon to pierce and kill the clone. This choice rejecting immense, easy power for a return to a simpler, more fundamental ideal is profoundly important. It leaves Jaden with two blades, his modern, purple-bladed one and the unstable, red-bladed weapon of the clone. Two lines, two choices, and Jaden chose the path of difficult morality over the path of certain power.
The convergence is not yet complete. Kel Dororo, having followed Jaden, materializes after Jaden exits the pit. He realizes that the Jedi is the key to his revelation. Kel begins to feed on Jaden's soup, seeing their Danosi intertwine in a pattern of destiny.
But the revelation Kel receives is not what he anticipated. As he feeds, he sees Jaden's enduring lines being consumed, but they are suddenly interrupted by the dull, gray strands of another. The true complexity in the path to understanding fate does not come through Jaden's rich, powerful soup, but through the fatal, chaotic intersection of all their lines.
His certainty in the simplicity of the Dinosi is just shattered. This profound, terrifying moment of realization is interrupted by the human variable, Kedron Fall. Kedron, having previously been brutally attacked by Kel, who shattered his nose and wrist but spared him because his soup was uncomplicated entirely, arrives holding a recovered E-11 blaster.
The Anzat, focused on the larger patterns, is indifferent to Kedron, viewing him as a mundane element. But Kedron, the man who lives by pragmatism and 109.9% efficiency, holds the blaster barrel to Kel's temple, forcing the Anzat to halt the feeding process. Kel simply says thank you, accepting this sudden chaotic twist in his fate lines that proved his revelation was incomplete. Fate, it turns out, includes desperate smugglers with blasters.
Meanwhile, back aboard Harbinger, Relin and Seyss meet their final, cataclysmic end. They engage in this devastating, force-amplified battle amidst the Lignan crystals in the cargo bay, each drawing on the ore's addictive, volatile power. They are fighting at a dizzying speed, using immense force techniques and telekinesis, fueled entirely by 5,000 years of hate and certainty.
Raylan, exhausted and realizing he is about to fail and be consumed, has an ultimate moment of philosophical clarity regarding the dark side. He realizes that rage and despair are the unacknowledged pith of the dark side. It consumed all who turned to it.
Yet, he refuses to turn away. He chooses annihilation over failure. He embraces consumption, determined not to fail again in preventing the Lignan from reaching the Sith. In his final seconds, Relin reaches out and grabs Seyss's hand. He unleashes the unbound Lignan energy and channels powerful, uncontrolled coils of blue force lightning. The energy is so immense that it bypasses the Sith's control and pierces the ship's superstructure, vaporizing both himself and Seyss in the conflagration. Harbinger is destroyed, consumed by the dark side power it was designed to hoard, finally ending the 5,000-year conflict.
And we shift immediately back to the moon, where Junker, flying on autopilot after Mar passed out, crashes near the facility. Jaden and Kedron race to the ship and find Mar near death from blood loss and decompression sickness. Mar relays his incredible survival story. He initiated the emergency vent sequence, turning the cockpit into a vacuum to kill the Massassi boarding party.
He was saved by calculated logic overriding brute force. The Massassi, who had forced open the security door and was strangling Mar, was instantly killed by the vacuum, saving the Syrian's life. Mar survived because he trusted his systems and his organization, the very things that make him unique.
Kedron and Jaden patch Mar up, securing Kedron's own shattered wrist with a flex cast. It is Mar, the analytical survivor, who relays Relin's final words, intended specifically for Jaden, a message that validates the Jedi Knight's constant struggle with his actions and doubt.
Relin's ultimate legacy, delivered posthumously across 5,000 years to the Jedi who came after him, is the entire philosophical foundation of this deep dive. That there is nothing certain, that there's only the search for certainty, that there's danger only when you think the search is over. This is the antithesis of the Sith certainty Seyss espoused, and the ultimate validation of Jaden's profound capacity for doubt.
This deep dive has shown us that the forces of destiny and history are incredibly complex, but they are all linked by a common danger: the belief that one already knows the answer. The certainty of the Sith, the certainty of the ancient Jedi in his rage, and the certainty of the Imperial scientists in their control. All of it led to catastrophic failure.
And all three were utterly destroyed. Relin and Seyss died, consumed by their certainties and hate and power. The Imperial scientists, certain in their ability to control the Mother, created the chaos that killed them. The ultimate failure belonged to those who believed they had the final answer.
Meanwhile, the Seekers survived. Jaden, still questioning his moral compass. Kel, who experienced a profound failure of his own certainty about the Dan Nosi and fate. And the variables. Kedron and Mar, the pragmatists who survived because they adapted to chaos rather than trying to control it. They were never certain of anything except the need to survive and protect their friends.
Relin's final message validates Jaden's ongoing doubt and search. It's a powerful call to perpetual intellectual and spiritual vigilance. The mission continues. Jaden now has two new goals: reporting the time jump and the dangerous Lignan ore to the Jedi Order via subspace, and tracking down the surviving Kemp clones who managed to escape the moon facility and are now desperate for a ship.
And here we see the true potential of the convergence. Kedron and Mar, having risked their lives, seen the complexity of the Force and nearly been consumed by 5,000-year-old hate, offer to help Jaden. They suggest they might join him in the search for the clones, finding purpose beyond mere salvaging. They too are pulled into the wider skein of fate, but they are entering it with open minds.
You began this deep dive wanting to be well-informed, to know the facts of this chaotic story. But Relin's final wisdom cuts through all the lore and technology. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can believe is that you already know the answer. The discovery of the Imperial cloning facility, the time-displaced Sith, and the Anzati hunter, all being drawn by the same Force vision or fate lines, suggest that even across 5,000 years, the universe demands a confrontation with certain truths. The search for truth must never end.
As Jaden said, looking out into the vast expanse of the unknown regions, where mysteries still hold sway and the remnants of history clash with the present, there be dragons,